Welcome to Emerge and Empower Podcast TV, a platform where resilience meets transformation. Here, we amplify voices that have faced trials, trauma, and adversity, stories that inspire hope, healing, and empowerment. Every episode brings raw, unfiltered conversations with individuals who have risen from hardship, embracing faith, strength, and purpose. Join us as we break the silence, uplift one another, and emerge stronger together. New episodes air Wednesdays at 6 p.m. English and Saturdays at 6 p.m. with select Saturdays in Creole for our Haitian audience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Emerge and Empower Podcast TV with yours truly, Dr. Lynn J. Now, we have individuals that come on every week, as you know, and they're here to tell their story of their emergence. And it is an incredible path to healing, and it is so fulfilling when we find individuals that come on and have turned their pain into purpose and their test into testimony. Today is no different, but as you know what, every story is different because the experience is different. The journey may seem similar, but they're not all the same. So on today, we have a special guest that will be sharing her story of her emergence. So what I'm telling you to do right now is to go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Emerge and Empower with Dr. Lynn J. Go ahead, click. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm waiting on you. We're not moving forward until you subscribe and also share, because sharing is caring, all right? Sharing is caring, and you're bringing healing to individuals as they come on to the set. So I'm waiting on you to go ahead and do that. Subscribe. It says it already. Subscribe, like, and share. I'm going to give you a moment so you can get yourself situated. If you have to park the car, if you have to put the kids, in the room to give them their toys, whatever it is you need to do so that you can pay attention to the story. I know you have to replay. You can always go back and catch up later. But may this bless each and every one of you as you come on today. May healing begin today, because it is time to heal for real. Can you say that with me? It is time to heal for real. And we'll be right back with our guests after our paid commercial.
Bestseller, soon to be New York Times bestseller. Hold on now, keep focusing, keep working, sis. All right, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Linda Joseph, and I'm a pastor, mentor, life coach. And basically, this book's about my journey. And it's a journey to healing. It starts from my childhood to life and marriage and to helping other people heal. So my whole point of view is making you be the better person that God created you to be.
Amen.
All right, so what do we have on here today? As you can tell, she has a name that's also similar to mine. We have the same first name, and her name is Linda. And on today, I would like to just bring you into her bio, and then we'll bring her right into the set so you can have an understanding of who this woman is and what she has gone through in her own past experience. Amen? In her own past experience. And again, if you have a story to tell, this is the platform that we call unto you to come on and share your story. Okay? Share your story. So Linda is a school counselor and a rape survivor. She shares her journey with PTSD, mental illness, and healing in the supportive memoir after being triggered during a graduate course. All right, she finds herself spiraling into flashbacks and depression, reliving the events of her assault while suffering from insomnia and obsessive thoughts. Here's the thought. I thought I was going to go crazy. She writes, feeling that drove her to visit with her professor one-on-one and seek out a therapist to help explore her traumatic history. Despite having prior negative experiences with counseling, the result is displayed with vulnerability and sensitivity here in what Linda describes as a roadmap of what to do about PTSD. Her transparency is powerful, and as she sparkles her breakthrough and private therapy conversations throughout the emotive memoir and breaches her compartmentalized memories to ignite the process of self discovery and emotional growth. She writes from a place of self reflection and understanding, digging into her childhood and early experiences, coping with grief and pain while siphoning her memoirs of sexual assault and recognizing how those events shape her relationships, specifically her first marriage. Readers will be swept into her sessions with her therapist, Ryan Keller, as she unpacks deeply complex revelations and share the highs and lows of counseling. Steadily compassionate towards those who have suffered sexual abuse, Linda urges readers to learn from her repressed emotions and seek support, discussing how to find the right therapist, recognize the lingering effects of trauma, and more her firsthand account in inspiring as the journal entries. Therapist notes, relayed conversations she includes here as she reflects that my being brave enough to do this might inspire readers to be brave enough to tell their story, and that will help them heal. So you will be ready to be able to experience her experience here on today as she share it with you. Are you ready? Let us welcome Linda to the set. Welcome to Emerge and Empower on today. Welcome. Introduce yourself to our audience in short, because I just went through your bio.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Lynn. I'm so excited to be here. It was great talking with you the other day. Yeah, I go by Linda Knipe. My writing is Linda L5 Knipe. I'm a retired school counselor. I've been retired for quite a few years now. But I come from a large, happy family. I come from a pretty secure background, but I had, just like everyone has, difficult times and some traumas in my life. And I got to a point when I was just about 40. I was in my first counseling graduate class, and it triggered a lot of things that I had buried. And that's what starts the book.
Wow, wow. So, Linda, take us through your journey and what was that like for you as you start to share your story? Let's just take us from as far as you can remember and where your healing journey began.
Well, I think that I always felt like I had it all together. Like I was pretty mature and kind of grew up. I was the oldest girl in a pretty large family, so I was kind of on a pedestal. And so that's a pretty heady place to be. It also is
Mm-hmm.
hard to stay on that pedestal, but
Right,
I think it determined a lot of the ways that I approached things, which is I could handle everything.
right,
When difficult stuff happened, I would just deal with it, put it away, and move on. It's like I didn't turn to people for help.
right.
And so I had things happen. I had when I was 11, my grandmother, who was my person in life, she lived just a couple of doors down from us, and I was as close to her almost as I was to my mom, and she died in a fire at her house.
Wow.
And so I was, being one of the oldest kids in the family, everybody was kind of, the kids were all terribly upset and crying, and my mother was trying to stay strong. And
Mm-hmm.
so I buried my grief and just tried to be really helpful to everybody.
Right.
And then, as we move on, other things happened in life that are tough. But I think the toughest was I had a really unfortunate and humiliating sexual encounter when I was in college that I totally buried. And I swore I would never even think about it again. And then I had a break-in and rape when I was living on my own when I was in my mid-20s. I was living in Florida, quite a ways from New York, where my family was.
Mm-hmm.
So I powered on with everything and got through the shock and everything, and then moved on. And I got married. We had 3 little boys, and as they started to get school age, I went back to a graduate program in counselor education. I was already working on a grant in the counseling department at the high school.
Okay.
So I went back to get my graduate degree. And at the end of the first class, we were talking about therapy. And I asked if there was ever a time when you feel worse in therapy before you feel better. And I was thinking back to an unfortunate encounter I had with a therapist very soon after the rape. And the professor got very quiet and he said, well, one of the times where it will be worse is when you have a rape in your history and you didn't deal with it. And then you start dealing with it in therapy, and it will be harder before it gets better.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting in a circle of about a dozen students. It was a summer class.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like someone had just thrown something at my face. And I all I could think was I wanted to blink really fast. And I kept thinking, don't blink, or they'll all know that
Right.
something happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as I left there, I started with re-experiencing. It was very strange.
Mm-hmm.
Before I even got home, I think I stopped in a parking lot and felt like somebody was climbing on me.
Wow.
And I pretty quickly was not able to eat anymore, which was very strange for me.
Wow.
And all I could do was drink like instant breakfasts and stuff. And I was having a really hard time sleeping, and I was ruminating on all of this stuff. And I didn't want to, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on. So I went back after a couple of weeks, and I made an appointment and talked to my professor, and he explained to me what was happening. And what I didn't understand was, why can't I control my thinking? I've always been able to handle things. And he explained PTSD to me, and he said, you're not going to be able to just put this away. This stuff is spilling out and you can't control it. And you're going to need therapy. So that put me on the path of starting to find a good therapist who was an expert in traumatic stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and this discovery now, though, as you are going to see this therapist, was it just with the therapist, or did you bring this revelation to your family members? Was anyone else aware as you was going through that triggering event?
Well, I told my husband what was going on, because I was already very busy. And we had three little ones.
Right.
And I'm sure I told my mother and my sisters, because I talked to them about everything. That was pretty much it.
Right. So when it first happened, you didn't talk to anybody until you were triggered. You talked about it, or did you share it when it happened?
Oh, yeah. Actually, when it happened, I was involved with the police, and there was a trial and all of that. Yeah. We caught him. I caught him. So
that's good.
Yeah. So there was a trial, and after I met my husband right after the end of the trial. And so
So
he
he was
was
aware of what you had experienced.
and he was there in the first 6 months, I think, that we met. I was still struggling a lot with
Okay.
the shock and all of that. So he was very aware of that. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I just put it behind me. And so when I was triggered and I told him what happened, he had known, he'd known
Right.
how it affected me to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was prepared.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I asked that, because usually sometimes when individuals are triggered, they hadn't actually spoken about it to anyone. So I wanted to know if that share was already done prior or during this trigger, because it's a lot when you have to share it during the time of trigger and nobody knew about it previously. So here it is, you coming with this realization of your life that nobody knew about. So they didn't know what your emotions were. So that part was at least good because you had a community, you had support in that process, and
Right.
also the person went through due process, which is also great that that was brought aware. So now that you have this trigger and you told your husband about it, take us through.
Um, it was before you could really research things on internet. So I was using phone books to
Okay.
find therapists within my vicinity had uh, that had PTSD and sexual trauma expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to several of them, and kind of I reached out, and people called me back, and we had phone conversations. And my therapist, Ryan, we talked for a bit, and then he suggested that I come in to an appointment and
Mm-hmm.
we talk and make a decision after that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've described in the book about seeking therapy, pretty quickly when you're talking to the right person, you feel that connection, you feel like you're talking about the right thing. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
I felt with him. Yeah.
Okay. So that journey continued. So we're just going to keep going through your steps. I
Yeah.
know sometimes we don't go in chronological order, but as you've gone through this first experience in the therapy, what was the process of the therapy for you? Did you find it effective?
Um, yeah. So therapy for post-traumatic stress, um, generally well, the most used and an effective therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy, also cognitive processing therapy. It's all about processing
Right,
those things in your mind that you didn't process before.
right.
So let me explain a little bit about traumatic
Sure, go
memory
ahead.
and PTSD. Um, so a lot of people have trauma, and what happens is we have sensations, that are very uncomfortable, things that our body does and our brain controls when something bad is happening, and it's designed to protect us. So things may happen like um, your breathing increases, you start breathing faster, your heart starts pumping more quickly, your eyes dilate. Those are all things that our brain has us doing to protect us, to get us ready for um, uh, breathing faster and heart pumping faster to oxygenate our
Oxygen.
muscles so that we can respond with either fighting or fleeing. And the same with our
Right.
eyes, our pupils dilating to be able to see things better. So those are all things that we do to protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they can be sensations can be kind of uncomfortable, and when all of that is done, when all of the scary situation is over,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, most of the time, you put a story to it. You talk about it. You talk about it in your head. You talk about it with other people. You
Right.
put a narrative to what happened, and to all of those sensations that you were feeling, and you store them in memory where you can pull them up at will. If you want to pull them up again, you can. Otherwise, they stay there, because it's what I read in a paper when I was researching it at first, when it first happened, is it's biology and biography put together and put in your mind. And the biology are the sensations and feelings you have. The biography is the story about it. And you put those together and it's stored. With trauma that you don't deal with, you kind of just shove it away. Like when I clean my house, when I have guests coming really quickly, and there's stuff I don't know what to do with, but I've got to get it out of sight. And so I shove it in a closet, and there it sits, and I forget about it until it happens again, and I shove more stuff in. And pretty soon, or over the years, the closet gets fuller and fuller until you hit a point where you can't shove anything else in. Stuff starts popping out when you try to. And that's very similar to what happens in your head with all of those really uncomfortable feelings that you've shoved away because they were too uncomfortable to think about and put a narrative to. And so there were the things about my grandmother's death and what happened to me twice with sexual assault. And I kept shoving things in there. And when I was triggered in that counseling class, things from a lifetime, I was almost 40 years old, started popping back out again. And then I couldn't control it. So, so you asked the question about what it's like in therapy. Is for good therapists for PTSD or sexual trauma kind of therapy are not going to direct your therapy. It's really important that the client or the patient feel like they're in control of what they want to talk about, because it's really important to feel safe. And a lot of times when people are bringing up stuff that you're not ready to talk about, that's not safe. So I was in charge of deciding what I was going to talk about, which could be really difficult because I was very busy hiding things. My marriage was struggling, and I didn't want to talk about that. I refused. When I went into therapy, I said to myself, I'm never going to talk about that dating situation that I'm so humiliated about. So it was hard to bring up subjects sometimes to talk about, because when I would go into therapy, I didn't always feel like stuff about the rape was in the front of my mind, stuff that I wanted to talk about. So eventually, over time, I would just talk about what was going on in my life with my children, in my marriage, with work. And it would get around to how that related to how I was struggling with the post-traumatic stress disorder and what was behind those struggles. And so we would get around to talking about it, but it was just in a way that I was in control, and my therapist would just be able to help me talk about things in a way that I didn't feel like I was being led into anything that I wasn't ready for. So it is a slow process. Especially because I had so many challenges going on at the time. Yeah, you asked a little bit about what it was like talking in therapy, and the kind of prevalent therapies that are effective are cognitive behavioral and cognitive processing. There are also other kinds of therapy. They do play therapy for children, and you're probably familiar with the PTSD book that is out there really describing things. The Body Keeps the Score by Dr.
Right.
Vandercook. And he talks about theater therapy, which is very much like play therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But those things can be effective, but they're not easy to access.
Right.
Cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive processing therapy are effective therapies that that counselors and therapists are trained in and that you can access.
Mm-hmm.
It's putting a story. So the part of it, the cognitive and behavior, is putting a story to what you're experiencing and
Mm-hmm.
how you're handling that, so that those memories can be stored appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time because as you talk about things and you get new perspective, more stuff comes up. I didn't remember everything
Right.
right
It
away.
gradually comes up.
Yeah. So that was my roadmap to therapy, and that's what the book is my experience, and my experience as a school counselor, kind of being a companion for students who were also dealing with therapy. So
Okay. So as a school counselor, you also were able to assist with children.
yeah, so if a child had PTSD or had sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
we would try and get them into therapy.
Okay.
Or they had gotten into therapy, but it's hard.
Right.
And so my position would mostly be to explain what was going on.
Okay.
If they were being medicated, to
Right.
explain what that process is like, because
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
whole medication process uh, is a trial and error. The same medications don't work for
For
everybody.
everyone, yes.
Yeah, and it takes time, and kids would be frustrated. Their parents wouldn't know what was going on, and so I would explain to parents what the kids were experiencing and how they could be supportive,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just help the kids to kind of persevere through it.
Right.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and there were kids that couldn't get to other therapy,
Right.
and
But affordability as
right,
well.
right. And so, and we were in a location that didn't have therapists, so you had to have transportation to get to the
Mm-hmm.
next town. So there were a lot of students who were had experienced trauma through their lives, that it was just the counselors. We did a lot of personal counseling.
Personal
And I
counseling.
was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a start and it helps because they have someone to talk to as well. Because the first key factor I feel is to talk about it, to be open about it. Because when you keep it all bottled up inside, that has, you have to find some place to put that, because you can go, like you said, you go through life or you go through the experience and you tend to want to put it aside, don't want to deal with, okay, that's done, done, done. And then you're triggered, like for me, I was older. This happened when I was a kid, but here I am. I have my kids. I have my life. I'm good. Like everything's going fine. But I never addressed it. Everybody knew about it, and there were things that they did not know. And so I was 35 years old when I was triggered. Here it is, me going back to being six
Right.
years old.
Right.
Okay. So, and,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
have to learn.
It was almost 20 years for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, it- I lost my train of thought.
It was almost 20 years for you.
Yeah. Um,
Well, what I was saying is when the trigger happens, it's like you're reliving, you're going back through that experience all over again. Sounds, things that would happen, whatever it was that caused the trigger. And here it is, you're finding I had to make a decision, what it's time for me to face this, deal with this. Or I ask God, like, why do I have to deal with this right now?
Right. Oh my gosh. I talk to God all the time.
Oh my goodness.
When I was,
Like, why now? Like, I'm good, I'm
or,
good.
or why can't you fix this? Why can't I figure this out?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I talked to God. I did have some revelations about that, and it was very funny because so I'm going to jump back. The
Sure.
thing that I lost my train of thought on is you
Hmm.
said that people keep things in their head and they don't talk about them.
Right.
And that's one of in the reviews for my book, it was one of the things that was eye-opening for me because I was very nervous about putting my story out there.
Hmm.
And then I started getting reviews and I started getting people talking to me, and nobody was talking about my story.
Right.
They were talking about the part where I was talking about how I wouldn't talk,
Right.
how I kept things in my head and I was ruminating. And in the book, I write a lot of the dialogue of what I was talking about in my head,
In my
just to
head,
myself,
yes.
nobody else.
Right.
And the problem with that, and I said it many times in the book, is that when you do that, the only perspective you're getting is your own.
Yeah.
And you just keep on rehashing the same sad stuff, and you're hard on yourself,
Yes.
and you are berating yourself. And it gets to be a very negative self-talk, which is not helpful at all.
Right.
And when I talk about that in author talks, or when people have read that stuff in the book, they're all in author talks. I have very accomplished people sitting in the audience who are shaking
Yes.
their heads, yes, going, I do that, And the whole I was on a sheriff's podcast where the sheriff does a podcast, and I was on with
Wow.
my brother is an investigative sergeant,
Okay.
and he's very involved in mental health wellness for the officers.
Okay.
And they had read the book. They both read the book, and they were both exactly the same way. It's like, oh my God, you're saying that we have to talk, and we know we have to talk, but it's such a hard thing to do. And so you just
Right.
ruminate in your head.
Hmm.
So that is the big message of the book, is that is toxic,
Right.
and you
We
do
keep
not.
mentioning a book here, so let me just put the book here so everybody can see. All right, because we keep talking about the book. Let's get the
Braving
book. There we
therapy,
go. So it's
because
called Braving Therapy.
because you have to be brave enough to go talk with somebody who can actually help give you perspective.
Right.
And if you start out just talking to people that as long as they are safe, as long as they are non-judgmental people who
Hmm.
will listen, and people who are good at giving you grace
Right.
and perspective, are really good people to talk to, as long as they're people you feel safe with. They're not judgmental. What I've learned is that when you talk to people and they're not judging you, they're just being listening and helpful,
Listen.
you
Hmm.
stop judging yourself.
That's it.
You
That's the
learn to
key.
stop judging yourself. So, so that was really a big revelation. And then I said that I prayed a lot, and I railed a lot at God, and I would get very funny responses, like
Yes.
immediately. And it wasn't just an answer, it was
Right.
something that was funny, like unmistakably
Hmm.
God with a sense of humor.
Yes.
But what I realized when I was sitting in my therapist's office is, oh, God is telling me that we are not made to live in isolation.
Right.
We are made to live in community. We are supposed to share our burdens, and we are supposed to take them to others and share our burdens.
Yes.
And I would take it to God a lot. And
That's the only place I had for me
Well, me too, for a long time.
Yes.
And I, I would get messages back, but it's when I really was able to realize that we need to open up to others. And I realized
It
that
is.
keeping things to myself, even the most humiliating stuff,
Mhm,
was not
mhm.
serving me.
No,
Yeah. So
it's
so
true.
finally, it took a long time. I have a very thick head. I was very I was very afraid of what might have to change if I talked about things. I
Right.
did not want to talk about my marriage because I was so afraid that if we really started talking about it, that I would have to face the fact that
Hmm.
it wasn't healthy for any of us in that marriage.
Right.
And ultimately, that's where I came to
Hmm.
after 4 or 5 years, four
Wow.
years of therapy, and my therapist finally said, "Do you want to be still talking about this 10 years down the road?"
Right.
And it was like you know, it wasn't healthy for my boys, so we
You
had a
spent
much
4 years talking about it.
well, couple years not talking about it, but
Oh, no. I mean, for the time not talking, and then when you came into the journey of talking about it, she's questioning you if you want to spend the next
yeah.
10 years talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. If I want to still be in that same space, and I knew that I had to make decisions, um, and also, I mean, really, one of the last things was talking about the humiliating dating experience that I had because I blamed myself
Wow.
a lot for the sexual encounter that I had, and I had never identified it as a rape, which I think happens to a lot of women.
Yeah.
It was a college situation that happens a lot to college young women, and you feel guilty and responsible and all of those things, and you don't label it what it is.
Right.
And one of the things that I did say in the book after I finally talked about it, and I said I never wanted to write this chapter. I was going to skip it, and I
Hmm.
realized that if the book was going to be authentic, that I had to talk about it because
You do have to be authentic.
that's the experience that so many women have. And what I ended up saying after talking about part of the book is talking about my story, and then the second half of every chapter is talking about my learning. And a
Okay.
lot of it was what I was thinking in my head and where I
Hmm.
was going and how I was changing
Hmm.
and how I was healing. But when I finally talked about that, it was like I never wanted to write this chapter. I was not going to talk about this in therapy. It took a
Hmm.
long time for me to. My therapist didn't know what the heck had happened to me because I just wouldn't talk about it.
Wow.
And I finally realized that I was not going to heal unless I,
Had
bit the
to.
bullet.
Yeah.
And so I revealed what happened in the book, but then I talked about how we raise our children talking about sexual stuff.
Right.
We don't educate them. As a school counselor, I would talk to kids who were involved in sexual activity,
Hmm.
and they would not talk about it. They wouldn't talk about what they were doing. They would say, I can't talk about it. It's too embarrassing. It's like,
Right.
you're doing it,
Right.
you know? And um, I just realized that kids would joke about it. They would be really crass about it, and they
Hmm.
would make fun and all sorts of things, but nobody talks about it in a really vulnerable way,
Right.
and boys either. And so guys are very confused about how to handle things. But what I ultimately said is no matter who was to blame, if you feel like you were raped,
Right.
you need to deal with it.
Yes.
Because if you feel like you were raped and you have to address it.
Hmm.
So that was
It's
that was
true.
my big message.
Well, I mean, look at it. As adults, it take you years to address it. As a kid or even as a teen, nobody really want to talks about it. You don't want to get that type of attention. So as a result, nah, I don't want to talk about it. And before you know it, you're in your early 20s, your 30s, and all of this. I've had someone that I spoke to, she was 60. Another person was 80 when they finally really confronted it, and that's when they realized their true healing had begun. So they were going through life just existing and not living, never talked about it. And then this weight came off once they voiced it. They once they talk about it, when they sat down, you know what, I'm gonna deal with this today and I'm gonna tell my truth. All
Yeah,
right. So telling your truth is important. That's your story. And you're not responsible for what somebody else did to you, what the perpetrator did. They were wrong. It was not your fault. And
exactly.
stop blaming and shaming and all of the things that comes in your head as to why you don't want to talk about it, why you don't want to share. I'm in a good place right now. I don't want to deal with this. There's so many different reasons. Not right now. I just met someone. There's always something that's causing you to say, you know what, I don't want to talk about this right now. But
Right.
it's actually a lot that you're doing is stemming from that hurt place, even though you're not talking about it, but you're still reacting from it. There are still things going on.
Well, you work really hard to keep control of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep control of other people. You want to keep control of how they respond to things.
Right.
Still find, um, I still find that and it doesn't happen often, but in really uncomfortable exchanges, that I will get that deer in the headlights, freeze kind of trying to flee
Mm-hmm.
response to things. And I I've been living my life so my therapy was 20 years ago.
Okay.
And my husband and I split up. We've had we had a much healthier and happier family, just doing things without living together.
Okay.
And we eventually both found people that were perfect for us.
Okay.
And he's in a wonderful marriage. I had a wonderful marriage until my husband passed away 4 years ago.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. My husband was such a big part of really finishing my healing, of accepting myself and not beating myself up about stuff.
Okay.
And he would just listen non-judgmentally and have very practical takes on anything that I talked about. And I really
Mm-hmm.
learned to talk and to not judge myself
Right.
and to reach out to other people. But recently, I think because life has gotten away from me, it's just super busy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and things have happened and I've started to get depressed,
Wow.
and it comes around and it happens with everybody.
Right.
But I've found myself kind of falling back into the chaotic thinking. I don't want to talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
going along with the, everything's fine, and
Right.
feeling terrible. And I finally saw my therapist yesterday. I see him maybe once or twice a year now.
Okay.
And he reminded me that,
Mm-hmm.
why are you not talking with people?
You have
And
to talk. You have to talk.
you have
And
to
it takes
talk.
platforms like this too to share.
Yeah.
Talking is healing.
But I had been listening to another podcast where the host said, when I get depressed, I don't want to tell people because I have so many people in my life that would love bomb me. And I don't want to be love bombed when I
You
feel
don't
like
want the
it.
pity.
And I said to him, that's how I feel. And he said, then tell people what you want from them.
That's it. That's
And
it.
it was like, as soon as he said that, I was like, of course.
That's it. That's
And I
it.
felt better when I walked out of there because I started right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to do it face to face because right then it was still a bit much.
Right. Whatever it is. Maybe it's a text message
I
or
texted some people and I said, look,
right.
I've been really struggling with depression lately and I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Right.
And I just need for somebody to give me practical So what works when you feel like this?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
that's what I need, is somebody to take me back to a place where I can figure out what I need to do for myself.
Right. Right.
And that was, my goodness, that was so helpful.
And I'm glad you mentioned it, because a lot of people think, and I say this a lot on the podcast, where people say it happened a long time ago, get over it. Something might have taken a minute to impact your life, but it lasts for a long time. It leaves an imprint, right? And even though you've gone through your stories and your journeys, like for me, I speak, I go to events and all of that. When I stay busy, I'm good because I'm not thinking about myself. I like not to think about myself.
Right.
I like not to. So, but then when you get alone by yourself and you have all this time on your hand and use your brain, you start thinking in these places and like, wait, I already got over that. Like, why am I dealing with this? Why am I thinking this? I've been there, done that. And so you have to. So there are days where I get up and I'm like, you know what? I just need a me moment right now. Like, let me just feel.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be good tomorrow. I'm not going to stay there because I've learned I'm not staying there. I'm not going out today. I might have been excited about going someplace, but as soon as that feeling come over, I say, you know what? I will not be good today. Let me be, you know what? I don't want to go out. I don't want to be a party pooper. So let's let me be. Or why don't we do this instead? Right? Let's just do a one-on-one. Let's just go to the beach. And so I ask what I want,
Yeah.
you know, and if the person is not available, I tell myself, you could do this by yourself. You can have lunch by yourself. You can go to the movies by yourself. And I like me. I mean, I was raised with 6 children. My mom had 6 of us. I have 6 children. So it's always never a dull moment in my house,
Right.
but I like my quiet time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I regroup. I
Yeah.
pray. I do my fast. Like right now, I want to fast, helping other individuals do it. But it's also refreshing me, right? Because when we start thinking and feeling, and some thought came to you and you're like, oh my God, I'm really feeling down right now or whatnot, but you don't say anything and you hold it there. And next thing you know, the week has gone and you're still in that place. You're smiling, you're doing everything, but you're still not okay,
Right.
right? Until you address that. And so I would text, hey, I'm just gonna vent right here, and da 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 da, and I write a lot, so it's got a long. I say you don't have to respond, just allow me to say what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
That works. So that's basically what your therapist was saying. Talk about them, tell them what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a work in progress, and it is with everybody, but hiding it is toxic.
Yes, yes. Silence is a killer, guys. It
Yeah.
really is. It destroys.
Yeah.
So it's important to do so. So, Linda, like I said, I think you're the first Linda on the set. So thank you. And they don't call children Linda anymore. So we can only go back maybe 50 years. I don't think 40 or 30 years. There's no more Lindas. If there's a Linda, they're, up
Yeah.
there in age.
It'll come back around.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't think it could ever get old. Let's get into the word of encouragement. What would you say to an individual watching right now, probably who hasn't said anything? What would your advice be to that person who has not confronted their truth?
Well, I think that writing helps. Writing helps a lot. I journaled a lot, and it was the first place that I was able to be honest with how I was feeling and what was going on. And I am a person, I do not like to talk about other people. If
Mhm.
people are giving me a hard time, or I feel like somebody's come up short or been unfair or anything, I don't like to
Mhm.
go and tell other people, but I could write it. And I could write how it affected me, and I could write all the bad words that I was really running through my head,
Right.
and start to process things that way. And that's really helpful. And then to start to think about, as you said, who you can reach out to that isn't going to judge you, that's just a good listener, and tell them what you
Right.
need from them. If you do not need to be love bombed, then tell them, I can't be hugged when I am upset. I
Right.
mean, I'm not sure exactly where that originated, but
Mm-hmm.
it has been with me through at least my adult life. If I'm really upset and somebody wants to wrap their arms around me, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, don't touch me right now. So it's important to tell people what you need. I need
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Right.
I need for somebody to um, spin my thoughts in a different direction
Mm-hmm.
that I had not thought about before. And when you have somebody that's a good practical person, that's a good person to go talk to.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Um, People that are highly emotional and judgmental are not the people that you want to go to if you need safety.
No.
But I would start by, is your journaling about your own feelings and thoughts. Also write down the people that you feel safe talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I would, maybe just reach out to them in text. It's a whole lot easier to
It's
start out.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Than actually
Definitely.
going up to somebody and saying it and then having to deal with what they say back to you. You might not be quite ready for that.
It's true. It's true. Texting, or if you want to do a voice note, you
Yeah.
have it. You can
Yeah.
do voice text. There's so many ways that you can do it. And just find what that is, whatever works for you. And
Yeah.
if you want to meet the person and just set it up. Hey, I'd like
Meeting,
to meet. Can we talk? And
meeting for
make sure it's
coffee.
somebody who will actually take notice, because there are people who might say, can we talk, and it'll be like a whole week go by before they're like, oh no, find someone who is going to be conscious of, she said, can we talk, and who's going to push you, who's not going to say, well, no, let's talk later. Someone who's going to say, okay, let's do
Right.
this when.
And a lot of times it is people who are also struggling, um, who will understand that,
Yes.
they are great people to reach out to and say, listen, I'm struggling to,
Hmm.
can we get a cup of coffee?
Right.
Something like that. But I do have to say that um, the book's title is Breathing Therapy, and the reason I wrote it is because it is important when you have trauma to take the therapy to the end.
Hmm.
I kept waiting for my therapist to say, "Yep, we're done. Yep, we're done," and he let me determine when we were really done. And it wasn't until I really was able to reach out to other people
Hmm.
and not need to be coming all the time anymore. And for me, that took 5 years because, like I said, I was going through a lot. I mean, it was
Right.
like that took us up to my husband's and my separation, and um,
The
but
question I have, do you feel like what you had experienced or what you were going through might have been what brought you and your husband relationship to the place that it got to?
no, I think that the difficulties in our relationship were one of the reasons why I was so close to
Okay,
being trigger.
one of the reasons. Okay.
Yeah. Um, but after all of that,
Mm-hmm.
when we were able to both move on to really happy situations,
Mm-hmm.
that was also where I really developed. I'd always been kind of an optimist. I also came from a great big family, and
Mm-hmm.
we were happy and close, and I'd always been optimistic. But afterwards, when I was in my second marriage and we were just living our life, I just became so grateful. And it was not uh, because things were going well. It was just grateful for like a beautiful day,
Yeah.
or being able to have be able to sit out in the grass and by water and the sunshine. And
Right.
I was just grateful for what I had. And that feeling has never left me,
Yeah, that peace, serenity.
even when he died. I was still grateful. I was grateful that I had him. And
He brought the balance that you needed.
yeah, and I do a lot of things now to keep balance in my life. Um, I have been a Weight Watcher most of my adult life, but now I go, even though I keep my weight in check, I continue to go for the community because
Mhm.
people, when people talk, they remind me of things that I do that are better for my wellness that I had
Yeah,
forgotten about, things I knew that worked, but I'd forgotten about.
right.
And I try to get regular exercise, and I pay attention to my spiritual life.
Hmm.
Um, so, so taking care of all of those things to keep balance in my
Hmm.
life
Right.
has really helped me a lot. And even going through periods where you're blue or periods where you really get into depression, it's like I'm
Right.
not letting it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So life is a lot better on this side after the healing journey.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you can finally hear, like you can see, like things are really colorful. There's
Yeah.
really sound because it's like you're in this tunnel, right? When you're not healed, you can only see things, you can only feel to an extent. But
Yeah.
when true healing comes in, I mean, you're free, you're expressive, you laugh at your own jokes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful place. So
Yes.
for any of you that are on here that are still trying to get to the other side of this situation, it's a beautiful place. All right. And no, we don't have to wait until we're dead and gone because listen, we have to supposed to start having some paradise here on earth. I do not believe that we have to go through all these pains and sufferings here and to wait until after we're gone to enjoy. No, it's time to have freedom here, laughter here, wear the colors you love, love sing, get into your hobbies, get your confidence back because confidence is priceless. All right. Get all of that now. Okay. Let your latter years be your best years. But you have to invest in you. That's the only way that's going to happen. You have to want it bad enough. Okay. You have to want to taste for it. Like when you crave something that you like, you need to crave healing. You know, you have to crave that I want to be better. I want to be well. I want to be jovial. All right. Instead of constantly, you know what, repeating that same cycle in your mind, you know what, you're walking, but you're not free. All right. So truly be free and allow freedom to come. You know, freedom is now and freedom is today. That's the freedom to heal for real. All right. I'm healed, but never dealt. That's not healing. You're bleeding. All right. And we know what happens when you keep bleeding out. Eventually, you're going to die out because that's only, if you keep bleeding, hello, that's it. But no, live. There's a lot to live for. And you know why? You are that important. All right. You are that important. And if your environment is not healthy, shift, get a new tribe, move away. I saw someone post on Facebook, she totally left the country and went to a whole other place. And she's happy. So you have to get away from. And a lot of these countries, I'm telling you, the US dollar, even though that's declining, what you have, you can survive on outside because you don't need to spend all of that. So find what makes you happy. Get your bucket list together. Unfortunately, when people are addressing their bucket list, it's because they only have a short period of time to live. So they try to get certain things done. No, start living now. Do it while you have the breath, while you have the health. All right. Get your bucket list together. The things that you always wanted to do them, redo them. Who cares how many times you revisited something on your bucket list? But you'll be so happy and you go to sleep peacefully. Because, you know, even in your sleep, I don't know, a lot of people don't mention this. You can't even sleep well. Your mind is tormented, even in your sleep. You know what? You're thinking something's going to happen, even in your sleep. people who won't take naps because you think something's going to happen. We have to truly heal. We know the world we live in has a lot of pain. There's a lot going on, but the piece that you have, the part that you can play, you know what? It starts with healing, and healing is beautiful. All right. It boosts your self esteem. It's not based on your weight. It's not based on your skin color or complexion or what country you're from. Healing is beautiful. Healing is internal. And whatever is on the inside radiates on the outside and it glows to the point people say, "What did you do different?" You didn't do anything different. You are actually now happy. All right. And it becomes contagious. And people start saying, "I love you." And you're like, you know what? I know. I love me. And I great. This is what I bring. But there was a time I couldn't do that before. I was like, yeah, whatever. You see greatness. I don't see that. I couldn't connect. I couldn't connect. But now, Linda, when somebody say I'm beautiful, I say, of course, don't you know my name? My name says I'm beautiful. I am Linda. I am muy bonita. Okay. But I couldn't do that until I was healed. Okay. Nobody can tell me nothing now, you know. And if you come to attack my looks or whatever, I'm over it. Like, I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life, and I am happy. When I was thin, I was not happy. I was, oh my God, self-absorbed, depressed. But listen, healing is a beautiful place. All
Yes, it is.
right. It's not overnight. It's not overnight. You have to invest in yourself. All right.
Stick with it.
Invest in yourself. Go ahead, Linda.
You have to stick with it
Yeah, you
to
have
the
to.
end.
You have to.
Yeah.
So I do want to thank you for being here on the set. I'm going to just close out in prayer for the individual that is watching right now that receive healing, that the Holy Spirit can bring that healing and that peace, that inner peace that you need. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, oh God, as we close out yet another segment. We thank you for the healing and the revelation that you have brought. We thank you, Heavenly Father, Lord, for the opportunity that has knocked for many on today and that they have decided today is the day. It could be a month from now that they're watching. Yes, today is the day. It could be a year from now that they're watching. Today is the day. Whatever time or moment or second they're watching, make a note of that and jot down today that today is the day. And all of that pain stops now. And you want to be free and want to live. So, Father, allow this healing to touch every individual under the sound of my voice and those that accompany them. Let the healing and the blessings flow, not only today, but forever. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Linda, for being on the set. And I know you won't be a stranger because you'll be back. So I love to bring people back and say, let's revisit. Let's see where you are now. So thank you so much for accepting to come on Emerge and Empower today. We
Oh,
love
thank
you
you,
and we
Dr.
thank
Lynn.
you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's close it out.